Welcome, Tara.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello, and I want to say happy World Mental Health Day as well to you. I know our episode isn't being recorded on World Mental Health Day, but the focus is on mental health in the workplace, and we're going to be talking about body image, which I know we've discussed before can really impact people in the workplace too. So we'll talk more about that later.
Mhm.
But I wanted to say, so I first came across your work on LinkedIn and I've been following it ever since. And I have to say, I've been really impressed with the work that you're doing as an award-winning body image psychotherapist. So it's great to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, when you hear someone introduce you and you're like, oh, that just feels really lovely. So thank you for that, Michelle.
Hey, well, thank you for being here. So I think it'd be really good for our listeners to hear more about your journey on becoming a psychotherapist, please.
So, you know, this reminds me of I got asked in one of my first interviews when I was becoming a psychotherapist, tell me about your journey and how you got here. And I proceeded to tell them about my journey. Like, I was like, oh, well, I woke up at this time and I was like, oh, I didn't get that interview. What about today, Michelle? So my journey really started. I was young. You know, people talk about they don't know what they want to be, but really from the age of 6, I mean, my dad was a builder, and he used to always hoard items that he would collect in other people's houses that he was doing up. And he brought home a book, and it had the body, and it was a book about the body, and it had a brain in it. And I remember opening up this book, and it was talking about like depression and sadness. And I was like, why are people sad? And I remember thinking at 5, I want the world, I don't want any sadness in the world, right? I want to eradicate sadness. And then when I was 7, I got sick and I was in hospital for a year. And I was in a cubicle and I felt so much pain physically, like, and I remember feeling so isolated, right? My parents could come in PPI, we all know what that is now, and my family could wave at me through this like small windows in Great Ormond Street. I just felt so isolated and lonely. And I remember thinking, "Oh, I don't want the world to feel loneliness. I don't want it to feel like this." And I could also catch glimpses of what I looked like. And I'd had chemo. Apart, my hair fell out, but I still had this like bit at the front like this, that you like a hen's bit at the front, like a bit of a fringe. And I was on steroids. So I ballooned. And I remember looking and catching sight of myself. And I was like, oh, this looks so bad. And I feel so much shame when my aunties came to visit from Ireland and people wanted to take photos of me. And I remember leaving hospital going, right, I need to get rid of people's sadness. I want to eradicate the world from loneliness. And I want to take away the way they feel about their bodies. And
Wow,
of course, fast forward to education and learning about psychology. I did an undergrad, I've done 4 postgrads in psychology too. And I
goodness.
recognize that I can't take away everyone's pain. And doing that, I mean, obviously, really what I wanted was to take away my own pain. Like, we know that that feels obvious. But I realized that what people need is the skills to be with their suffering and the safe space to tell their story. And that just felt like, boom, you know, this was just such a big thing for me to learn. And then I, you know, qualified in CBT, and I worked in the Maudsley, and I worked in, it's a national specialist unit for OCD and body dysmorphic disorder. And that's when I started studying compassionate focus therapy too.
Yeah.
And that was life changing, not just for me, but for all the patients there also. And so then I set up, I don't know, am I talking too much about the
You're
journey?
not. I'm absolutely listening to this journey. Yeah, carry on.
I burnt out. I know like we're like the with mental health day and awareness of stress in the workplace, I on paper was on top of my game, right? I was leading a unit, I was doing talks, you know, I spoke at national and international conferences. I set up a BABCP branch at the Isle of Man, and
Wow.
I would burn out. Like, I remember assessing a patient, and I was like, oh, tell me about you. And then I asked them about their sleep, and I remember they slept on average 5 hours. I remember going, oh, fuck me, I'm not sleeping that. I'm not sleeping that. And I totally burnt out. Like, I was emotionally exhausted. I had lost touch with myself, my needs, and I stopped feeling satisfaction, if I'm honest. And that probably is the definition of burnout, you know, losing touch with yourself, emotional exhaustion, and not feeling the same satisfaction with my work as I once did. So I took a year out. I had the privilege of going, I'm going to put my house up, like, I'm going to rent it out. I'm just going to go fucking traveling. So I thought maybe the problem was people. Maybe I don't like people. That's my honest response. So maybe I've got it all wrong. But I remember even getting into a taxi to the airport and not wanting to ask the taxi man how was he in case he told me, right? Just in case he told me how he was.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went traveling and I realized within the week, it's not the people. I love people. I love them so much. It's just that I was exhausted and I wasn't putting my own needs into not even the forefront. They weren't even in the same room. So that
Yes.
was that. And I'm not burnt out anymore. I set up my private practice. I said toodle pip to the NHS. And I now work hours that suit me. And I absolutely love my job and I love people. I'm just not exhausted anymore.
Yeah, actually, I think you've just gone into answer. I was going to say what had led to your burnout, but I think you've just put some of that in there.
There was so much, like, now from studying compassionate work, like, I recognized that I had such a fear of failure. Like, if I thought about failure, even like, I don't really struggle so much with this anymore, but even before coming on the podcast with you, I had a second of, she's going to ask you your name and maybe you won't remember. And then you're going to change us, all those things that crop up. But I had such a crumbling fear of failure. And I would literally overuse my drive system to a point of, now it's not mania, that's the incorrect term, but I was near manic. Like, I would sleep 3 hours, I would get up and I would just work. Like, that's what led to my burnout. Nothing was more important than achieving at work. And that meant no work-life balance. Like, I wouldn't connect with friends, no time for a partner. Are you kidding me? You
Yeah.
kind of work. And humans, we're meant to have balance. Career is important, but it's only one pillar. You can't rely, if you think of the chair, if you only have one leg, then if something goes wrong at work, I'm now nothing, you know? Also,
Mm.
overworking, fear of failure, and not having more legs to my chair. I was never able to soothe myself when something went wrong. I would go, you should have done better. Even when I was a newbie in the role, I was like,
Mm.
you should be that senior. What's the matter with you? And then body shame came and all of that. Like, maybe I don't look good enough. Maybe this, blah, blah, blah. All of that contributed to, I had so many medical unexplained symptoms, psychosomatic, my eardrum, I stopped being able to hear in one ear, I had back issues. And then surprisingly enough, I decided to take a sabbatical, travel around the world with a massive backpack, hearing fine, no back issues. So
Yeah.
what do
Actually, the symptoms of burnout are real, aren't they? Yeah. So, hey, thank you for, really going through your journey. I loved what you said about teaching people the skills to be able to sit with those feelings, perhaps to process them, but having a safe space to do it. And I know I'm going to come and ask you more about that. What I want to ask you is, so within your career, I can see that you have now really specialised. I know you've written a course, we'll talk about it, but within body image. So I want to talk more about the body image. I could hear from your journey that you mentioned about catching your reflection, and that really traumatic time that you spent in hospital as a little girl. And that sounded that has also really fueled you to be able to help others. So do you want to tell me a little bit more with that?
So why I've become so interested in body image, and so obviously there's that childhood, but I think, like most of us, we can kind of put a lid on our childhood because it feels the safest sometimes to put those experiences away and push them down, and I'm an adult now and I can cope with everything.
Mhm.
And of course, I remember learning about body image and BDD and body dysmorphic disorder. I learned about it in textbooks, but it wasn't until I went into the BDD specialist unit in the Maudsley that I met, we'll call her Emma. I went into the unit, so it's an inpatient unit, and everyone had their own rooms. And I was just going in, meeting the patients, how is everyone? And I met Emma, and Emma wouldn't even like she wouldn't even open her curtain, even though the grounds, I don't know if anyone knows the Royal Bethlehem, but the grounds, there's so much forest, like that you can't see through anyone's window from outside, but she would shut her curtains just in
Mhm.
case a car in the distance saw and it would crash because she was so ugly. Like
Wow.
that's how, and I was, whoa, like obviously if I drew a picture of Emma, aesthetically would be by a very rigid, standardized societal standard, they would say Emma looks great,
Mm.
she fits that ideal. But to her, because of the internal messages, because what she has constructed in her mind, she is observing externally. And I asked Emma to draw herself. It is part of the measures that they do at that unit. And
Mm.
it was so skewed. And I was like, this is mesmerizing that the stories we tell ourselves
Yeah.
just interrupt the lens and how we view ourselves. And I was like, wow. And also, it's the first time I came across suicide, people
Mm.
that were suffering with body image, well, BDD on that unit. People did successfully take their life. And I walked in on a person that they weren't able to, but they had tried. And I was like, this isn't just harmful, this is life and death.
Yeah.
So I became enthralled with the way the mind impacts what we see and the amount of suffering we feel when we think we look a certain way in the mind of another person.
Hey, yeah. Hey, thank you. And to pick out from that, so could you tell our listeners then the difference between having perhaps body image concerns, and then if we look at BDD,
Mhm.
what the difference is between them?
Absolutely. So there is a big difference. I think a bugbear of mine is, when people try and diagnose each other, like
Mm.
you've got BDD, or, and it's like, shush, like it really annoys me. You've got BDD, or, you cure your polycystic ovaries and take my vitamins, or, it really annoys me
Mm.
when people start diagnosing each other without a qualified professional or an assessment.
Mm.
Anyway, so BDD is prevalent amongst 2%, maybe 2 to 3% of the general population. I do think that's maybe underreported because of there's a lot of shame around it. People think it's because they're seen as vain, whatever. But it's a mental health disorder that, yeah, 2 to 3% of the population. And the real difference is the severity and the impact it has on someone's life.
Mm.
Okay. So the severity, the impact, these people, they find it very hard to do just daily functioning. Like,
Yeah.
and this disorder is very, I mean, you need professional help and then sometimes medication too. So BDD it might have threads that link us into body image concerns, but body image is when we generally function, like we're getting up for work every day, but we have some dissatisfaction with how we feel our body is or what we look like. But generally, we can function quite well, and the distress is much less.
Yes, thank you. So it's more, body image is more about, it can be fleeting, can't it? Rather than something that's going to really preoccupy us. And when you shared that, you've seen people who have died by suicide who are living with BDD, the statistics tell us that a person living with BDD is 45 times more likely to make an attempt or die by suicide. So that's huge, isn't it? It's a real problem.
It's huge, but I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. The amount of hopelessness that is associated with BDD, and like because of the dysmorphia, can you imagine you've got everyone that you love telling you, because you're constantly seeking reassurance, they're constantly telling you there's nothing wrong, you look okay. And then you've been told to go into you speak to a mental health practitioner and they're going, nothing wrong aesthetically. And a lot of the time, it's very hard to change how someone views themselves. It takes a long time with BDD, at least 4 months of treatment we found at the unit. And it doesn't it's so sad to say, but I'm not surprised. And I think it takes up to 20 years sometimes for people to get a diagnosis or to seek help. So you can imagine the suffering that those people are feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, thank you. And I actually saw when I was looking at your work that you are recommended by Professor David Veal, who is the world-renowned specialist, isn't he, working at the Maudsley? So yeah, incredible work. Um, Going to body image, I think you made a really valid point here because about people diagnosing people. So I had for a long time, people kept saying to me, "You've got body dysmorphic disorder." And so I think I started to think, oh, perhaps I have got it. I mean, luckily, in later years, I've gone on to the Body Dysmorphic Disorder Foundation, and they have a test that you can do for free. And I realised, no, I haven't. I have got body image issues, and so I think it comes from a place of where people are not aware. And so they're saying, oh, you've got BDD. And actually, no, we haven't. But there's a very real problem with body image, isn't there? And I want to give us a statistic here that I read. So in 2024, it says the real state of beauty, it's a global report by Dove, and finds over 1 in 3 women in the US would give up a year of their life to achieve an ideal look or body. And I read that and I thought, oh, it turned my tummy. I feel happy to share. So I know I've shared with you, but my oldest son, so he physically left this world when he was 59. In fact, I can say he died now. He died when he was 29. And for him to be able to be sitting here now and listening to us or, watching the sunrise. So to me, to hear people would give up a year of life, I thought, shit, this is some massive problem.
Well, listen, and yeah, I know you've told me about your boy, and I never said I'm sorry. I was like, what the fuck, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think when we experience death, we hold on to and appreciate life so much more, right?
Yeah.
And I can feel that, but we really, really appreciate life more. And sometimes I have asked women that come into my clinic, let's like, if I told you you had a year left to live, how would you be living differently?
Yeah.
And that's where the freedom is. That's where the freedom is, right? And it's I can't blame them though either, Michelle. I know you don't, because we have been conditioned since birth that our worth is on our looks. And if we look a certain way, we get success and love, and all of our suffering goes away.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like much, does it? Give up 1 year of your life for all the success. But it
Ah.
right? But
Mm.
it's a lie. I keep wanting to swear. It's a lie. It's a bullshit. I'm swearing. It's a lie.
Mm.
That we think if we get the body shape, we have been taught like in a fairy tale, we get all of this. Everything you've ever wanted. And you won't feel that suffering and pain. And if you're just the after picture, life will be great.
Yeah. That's
Right?
a really interesting way of how you've put that. And I'm glad you said that. It's definitely not coming from a judgy place. It was more of where I thought, my goodness me, this problem is huge.
It's huge, right? And
Yeah.
even they've done a study into, I don't know how they're even measuring this, but the amount of time the average woman in the UK and the US, the amount of time that they spend thinking about a diet with the purpose to shrink or being on a diet, and it was between 17 to 19 years.
Goodness me.
17 to 19 years. And, you know, I mean, I speak to great women. I speak to women all walks of life. And if you talk to people, they generally will say the greatest commodity is not money, it's time, right?
Mm.
We all
Yeah.
say it, we all know it in our wise minds, but yet we are giving up so much of that precious commodity to, I fucking hate the diet industry. I'm all for health, not the diet industry. It's like a trillion pound industry that is all about feeding us insecurities and then going, aha, get this body shape, and then you'll get everything you want.
Mm.
And it's just the vilest, most nonsense lie I think we've all been taught as little girls. Shrink your body, you will be loved, nothing bad will happen, life will be great. And I just absolutely hate it. It's awful, and it's ruining exercise for us as well. Like, the main focus of exercise is so you should shrink, and if you don't lose weight, you're failing, you're doing something wrong, try harder. I
Mm.
absolutely, and we know. What do you think the statistic is for diets failing, like, so for you to not lose the weight you wanted on a diet? What do you think it is?
Oh, well, I did see you post on LinkedIn actually. Yeah, so I can't remember that, but what I did see was I thought, my goodness me, the amount of years that I've gone to the gym and it is to shrink myself. So go on, tell us the statistic.
Just you, like, I am not this angel sitting here going, it's never happened to me. Like, me too.
Mm.
I have skipped breakfast, intermittent fasting. I have skipped lunches. I skipped dinners. I have like avoided bread as if it was poison. Like, I've done it all too. Like, me too, Michelle. It's 95% of diets when they have a focus to shrink you, it doesn't work, right? It doesn't happen. So if I said to you, Michelle, get in a, you know what, I'm going to drive us out for the day. And you'd be like, yes, Tara, I'm going to come with you. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to go for a drive. I said to you, but Michelle, there's a 95% chance that I'm going to crash that car, and, you know, it's going to cause a lot of impact to your life. You're not getting in the car with me, right? You're putting thumbs down, right? And so it's like, but if you know that, let's go into diets at least with this informed decision making. Like, let's really get to know the facts. Like, if you know that the diet industry has been built as just to take money off you, right? And if you know that there's a 95% chance that they're not going to work, and not only that, it's going to be disastrous for your hormone health, your mental health, like, you're literally going to lose that relationship with your body. Like, the diet industry makes us lose the trust we have with us and fucking pay for another plan with them. We
Yeah.
intuitively know what we need. We really do. But for
Mm.
so many years, we've been outsourcing our trust and decision making to wellness experts, uh, or like the diet industry, or Slimming World, or Slim Fast. And I used to watch Friends growing up. They're the worst.
Yeah, goodness me. So I can remember at school, I was really petite. I was really thin. And I can remember being called skeleton at school, but it wasn't something I felt embarrassed about.
Interesting.
Yeah. And by the time I was 15 and I got a little Saturday job, so, you know, I can remember going and spending my money, I'd go to Boots and I'd buy Slim Fast.
So, what was the link then, Michelle? So, was it because you saw your role or your identity was, I am skinny and I get praised for that, or this is who I am, and you wanted to maintain it? Was that it? The slimming fast?
I think I'd probably started to fill out a little bit.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, as I started to put a little bit more weight on, I felt like, oh, no, 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 that's wrong. I don't want to be a little bit curvaceous or plump, which is shocking, isn't it, when you think about it now? And I think my understanding of body image back then, obviously, was very, very small. And because what we know is, and I want you to confirm this as well, that so having a body image problem isn't a mental ill health condition, is it? However, it's can you tell us more about how we understand body image?
What have you got in your mind? Because I think most people know this.
Yeah, so in my mind, it's about how satisfied we are with how our body looks. It's around so the way I think and feel about my body and how it's perceived by others.
Perfect. I think we all know, right? That's absolutely perfect, right? Because we all have an image of what we feel we look like.
Mm.
Okay. And because we are social, we have a mammalian part in our brain, we all have a felt impression of what we think other people see when they look at us. And we all have this really rigid ideal on what we should look like. And because we have this mammalian part of our brain, we want to be part of the pack. We want to belong, don't we?
Yes.
We don't want to be shoved out. You know, we've all watched David Attenborough and he's like, there's a zebra over there, or there's a gazelle. And as soon as the animal is pushed out of the pack or the herd, the lion comes and gets that one. They're vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know, we've got to cheer for them both. Lion needs to eat, gazelle, you know, could get away. But we have this part in our brain, so it's much more than, you know, vanity. It's a brain thing. It's a science thing. We want to belong. We don't want to be shunned by other people. We don't want to feel humiliated. We
Wow.
thrive on connection.
Yeah.
We have
That,
been taught that this body image means you'll connect with others, right?
yeah, it's powerful stuff, isn't it? It's very subliminal as well, isn't it?
Mhm.
That we're being fed through social media. And yeah, what do you think is one of the main threats to people around body image at the moment? Do you think it's AI?
Go on, what do you mean by AI?
Well, I was reading, actually only briefly yesterday, and it was talking about AI and I suppose how it's making us all look or changing us. But I don't know. I don't know enough about it yet.
So I read something, and it's this, I think it's Aging Body Liberation, this fantastic page that I follow on Instagram. And it's about, you know, when we're going through middle age, you know, what are we meant to look like, blah, 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 blah. And then someone put into Chat GPT, like woman who was 50. And it was this woman who was at least 100 years old. And it was like as if when you get to a certain age, like you are decrepit or you're 100 or whatever. So I think AI is also, if you put in pretty, create me a pretty picture of a female, they will give you that very rigid ideal, like, you know, a white, slim, blonde, whatever. There is no generalization and acceptance that beautiful bodies do come in all shapes and sizes. So you've also got AI models now, you know, gone are the
Yes.
days that you have to employ someone and feed them if you give them food, right? You know, the model industry. Anyway, we won't go into that. But
Mm.
there's AI models now. So the model that never ages, the model that never puts on weight, you know, and she's picture perfect, smiling, and all of these things. So AI probably has a place to play, but I think really, and I know everyone wants to blame social media. It certainly isn't helping things. But your view on your worth comes in mainly your first 7 years, and that is your caregivers and your siblings and those around you.
Mhm.
So yes, social media definitely comes in later, you know, 10, 11, 12, and we have the influence, all of that. But it's your inner circle, your family system that in those formative years have the biggest impact on your attachment to who you are and your value and how you show up in the world. But
Yes,
social
fascinating.
like I remember being at university when I was 18, like we had Bebo and I think Facebook was coming out, I'm not sure, but we just had cameras. Like there was none of the ones on your phone, and like we didn't have to be picture perfect all the time. Like everyone was in their hoodies until a night out, and that was great. And then I went back to Aberdeen to visit a friend more recently, and I was like, wow, these people don't look like students, whatever that is. They're like picture perfect, contoured, you know, like everything is ready for a photo. And whilst I'm all for wear your makeup, get your hair extensions if you want, get veneers, God, I have got them, right? But I'm also like this urgency, or it's needed like a ready to perform at all times. It's exhausting, and I don't think it's helpful. And the photo on our phone, I think, has been detrimental actually, because again, let's keep in mind that we have this mammalian part of our brain. We want to belong. If someone now takes a photo, let's say your mom takes a photo or your friend takes a photo, it's not just in the family album. the whole world is going to see. And not only will they see it, they can save it forever, you know? And I just think that is contributed to us feeling like we must always look picture perfect all the time, just in case someone takes a photo and they might share it.
Mm. Do you know, even as you're just saying that, I could feel like that tiredness of that you've always got to be ready. I think, did you say ready to perform? Yeah, goodness. So this leads me, I want to ask about, I know that you have designed a program to help people around body image, haven't you? And could you tell us more about it, please?
So I have created a program because I see this, it's very, everyone's got a different story, but the underpinnings are quite similar. And with women, it feels like I'm not good enough or I'm letting others down. And that feels tied to a lot of the time because of the bullshit we've been told. If I could just change my appearance in some way, those things would disappear.
Yeah.
So the course looks at, it's not body positivity, it's body neutrality. And I think BOPO, as they call it, has its place. I think it popped up in 2012, but I think it has its place. But if you look at a spectrum of like, I don't know, 10 is body positivity, and I'm celebrating every part of my body and it looks great. If we have 0 where body neutrality is, and -10 is where body shame is, it feels more
Wow.
realistic, right? To get us
Yeah.
to neutrality. And I think women have enough pressure on themselves constantly. And if you're getting told that you must celebrate every part of you, I don't think it's realistic sometimes, because depending even on our menstrual cycle, I know, let's say the week before people come on their period, they're typically feeling more anxious. They're typically experiencing more negative thoughts. People going through perimenopause and the menopause, big life transitions. I don't think we're going to look in the mirror every day and go, well,
I was going to say, I'm definitely not going through the perimenopause.
this is unrealistic. And I think it also could slip into toxic positivity. The course is about, rather than celebrating aesthetic, it's all about just giving this body, this vessel that helps us move through life, respect and nourishment, really. And we also see the function. So if I go to the gym now, it's, I'm trying to do squats, right? I'm doing squats and I'm lifting weights, not because I want a bigger ass, right? Because that's in fashion now. I'm doing it because I want to be able to sit on my toilet when I'm 90 and not pay for support for someone to lower me down. I want to be able to run up those stairs and be like, do you know what? I can make it upstairs to go to bed at night. I can dance on the dance floor. I've tried to dance anyway. 70, 80, 90. I'm doing it for, I respect my body and I want it to be with me for as long as it can. You know what I mean? Osteoporosis, porosis, we don't want to feed into that.
Yeah.
So have I answered your question? Probably not. The course looks at, where did shame first begin? We look into your childhood. We look at, where did shame first arrive? Because even though people come into therapy and for support with the presenting problem, we find drop back. They're just hooked into childhood messaging.
Yeah.
So we look at, where was shame born for you? What are all the messages you heard? We look at, so why is it here? We look at, why did it develop? Why is it still here? So we look at all the things you're doing that keeps body image concerns thriving. This could be camouflaging. It could be always hiding certain parts of your body. It could be avoid. I mean, I've had women that come in and they're not having sex, and that's great if that's your choice, but it's not. It's threat driven. They're not having sex because they don't want to be seen at certain angles. They don't want certain parts of their body to be on show, because in their minds, their belief is, if someone sees all of me, I will be seen as undesirable and I will be rejected and I'm unlovable. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
So we look at all the things they're doing that are keeping them stuck, and we teach self-compassion.
Yeah.
We look at the difference between what's life like having self-criticism as your motivator, right? And what would life be like if we chose a different teacher? So I'm sure, have you heard of the visual cliff experiment?
No.
Okay, I wish I could remember who did it. Who did the visual cliff experiment? I should know, but there's a visual cliff experiment. It's a very well-known one in psychology, and they get babies. This was before ethics were introduced, but they get
Mhm.
babies, and it's like their babies are on one side, and then they've got a fake drop. So it looks like there's a drop, but there is glass, and they've got mum and dad on the other side. So baby is safe, right?
Yes.
And baby, though, is thinking, hang on a minute, there's a drop there. Now, when the baby's scared, as it obviously is, if mom is on the other side going, come, yeah, come on, do it. Baby's scared, but baby will generally 95% of the time come across that cliff.
Hmm.
Great. If baby is on the other side and mom just has a neutral expression, she doesn't respond, the baby won't come over. And if the baby is on the other side and the mom is going, what's the matter with you? Or saying, oh, baby
Mm.
gets distressed and moves nowhere. So
Wow.
who
Mm.
do you want by your side when you're in your biggest depths of pain? Or if you're having a day where you're like, you're professionally ready, but then you catch yourself in the mirror and all of that confidence just drains. Do you want that self-critic saying you should have gone on that diet 2 weeks ago? Who do you think you are wearing that jumpsuit? Or you're disgusting, or they'll all laugh at you when you go in today. Do you really want that by your side? Does that really promote growth? Or
Mm.
would you like someone that encourages you and said, you know what, this is difficult?
Mm.
You have grown up feeling that your greatest worth is how you look, and you
Mm.
fear being unlovable. But
Yeah.
actually, let me remind you of all of the different things that make you lovable. So, and then we have skills that help you do that.
Yeah. So you're talking about being your own best friend, really, aren't you? Your own cheerleader, which,
A wise cheerleader who understands this is hard, but you're capable of hard things.
yeah. Oh, I love how you've said that. A wise cheerleader.
Mm.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't recognize they've got this inner critical voice, and that actually is really bullying to them. And what I see is nobody gets better from bullying.
No one,
No.
no one. And that's part of the course as well. So we have a whole section on getting to know your self-critic. So people go, how do I get rid of the voice? I just want to get rid of the voice. I'm like, no, there's a wealth of information in here. Put up a pew, bring them in. Let's get to know them. What do they look like? It gives you an inkling to where this self-critic was born in. Like who does it look like? What is their tone of voice? What are their expressions towards you when you're struggling? People generally say a look of disgust or a sneer, pointing down at them. And then importantly, we look at, well, why are they employed? What's their function in your life? Because people grip on tightly to their self-critic.
Mhm.
Like a big fear is, but if I don't criticize myself, then I'm going to get really fat, or I'm going to become, I won't know what I look like, or I will lose control of my appearance, or mine was I'll lose my drive. I thought I will not be a good worker anymore. And I got a lot of praise for burning myself into the ground.
Yeah.
Um, so then after getting to know your critic and getting to know what you think you need it for, that's
Mhm.
when we start introducing a self-compassionate stance. Like when you're suffering, which I think women can recognize when they're suffering, not always, but they recognize
Mm.
something's not right. I'm not feeling my best, or something's, women with body dissatisfaction lose up to 5 hours a day because they're in their heads or checking or
Yeah.
shrinking some way.
Mm.
So we think about, well, you use your self-critic, but if we could employ more self-compassionate techniques when you're suffering, we show them what life might be like. And
Yeah.
I always promise you can choose at the end of this course, end of treatment, you can keep the critic. I promise you, I'm just turning the volume down. But if you
Mm.
find that life is better and you thrive with the self-compassionate stance, you
Yeah.
keep that. And then just giving people the control is helpful. But I
Yeah.
think as well, it's values. Helping people see that there's so much more to them independent of their aesthetic. And when we lead with our values and we find out what truly matters to us, we get back those 17 years, but we invest our time into a life full of joy. And, you know, like that question, if you knew that you had 1 year left to live, how would you live differently? And rather than waiting for that alarm button or alarm call, let's try that now. And
Yeah.
that's where the acts of courage come in. So if one of your things are, I don't know, I never allow myself to wear, I don't know, short sleeves, we have an act of courage, let's try that. Whereas the critic would tell you, you know what, you're in a hole, make sure you cover up, make sure you cancel that plan. But the critic gives you spades that literally just keeps digging you further down. You will never know that you could show up in this world authentically as you and still be loved. And this is where the compassion comes in. So I'm suffering. How can I bear with that suffering? And rather than use a spade that gets me down this hole, how can I use a ladder to get out step by step and build the confidence to show up as me and learn that all parts of me can be wholly loved?
Yeah.
Have I answered your question?
You, you have, and you know what? And I just want to reflect on some of the, the language that you've used, which is so empowering.
Yes.
There's so much I want to pick out from that. First of all, I loved how you used the spectrum. I've
Mm.
not really heard it described like that before, where you've got body positive here, and then it comes to body neutral in the middle, and then body shaming. That I felt like, wow, people could actually see, can't they, where they are on there?
Yeah.
And body neutrality, yeah, just feels really empowering. Um, and my brain's going to go off from the amazing things that you said. You said turning the volume down
Mm.
on that inner critic and bringing courage, and I know you keep pointing on the video, I know for those that are listening, but to perhaps what some people, it's awful, you call them bat wings,
Mm. Mm.
and they wouldn't want to wear something, and you said an act of courage that you'd come and you'd wear a short sleeve top. So I can really hear how for people it's really working with them to love themselves, isn't it? To
Mm.
accept themselves, and that it's okay to be seen. This is a big thing for me that I find within therapy, that if you have somebody that's not been seen, then for them to then go on to be seen and feel that that's okay and to take up space and show up just as they are is a huge thing, isn't it?
It's absolutely massive, you know, and that's why I call it a ladder, because you know, it's not okay, you're not seen now, be seen. We understand first, right? Get out there, you know, you're cured. It's understanding firstly, and this is the compassion, the understanding, the non-judgment. Let's understand why being seen for you is painful. What
Yeah.
is painful about that? Let's really understand it. I'm getting at your level. Like, what does it mean to you? Maybe it was when you were a child, like every time you were seen, you had to look perfect. You got praise for it. It doesn't mean you got bullied, maybe. People have been bullied, unfortunately, for their aesthetic. But maybe it wasn't that. Maybe you got so much praise. So now you feel being seen unperfect is painful, because when you're unperfect, you're invisible and you don't deserve to be seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm taking that in. Yeah. So this course, would it be for people that are over 18, or what's the age range? How long do they attend?
So it's definitely for over 18-year-olds. There's this wonderful, embrace. I need to get the name for you, Michelle. There's this wonderful Australian charity, and they have set up this fantastic course for children, and they've deployed it into Australian schools now. But this
Oh,
is,
it's free, isn't it? You can see you've got some of the resources online.
yes, yes,
Yes, I
yes.
can't remember the name either, but we can put it in anyway so people can see that on the write-up for the podcast.
Fantastic, they're great. So the course is for adults. It's not suitable for people that have eating disorders or body dysmorphic disorder, because that really needs one-on-one professional support, right? So this course is for it's for women who are, they know sometimes they're being held back with how they feel they look, and they know that what they're doing, the cycles they keep repeating, it's just not working. So they can choose to do it over 8 weeks. We talk a lot about body grief. Have you heard of body grief? Do you know what?
No.
Well, it's just basically mourning the body or mourning the ideal self that we've been promised if we lose weight. So it's, for example, when we're 35, 45, 55, 65, whatever, we can look back at that younger body and be like, oh, I wish I still had that now. And you can then be working hard. I'm going to get all the tweaks. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to starve myself. And then you get to a point in the course and in treatment that you have to grieve that actually it's like a tug of war. I'm going to get it. No, you're not. I'm going to get it. We put the tug of war down, that rope, and we mourn for that body that we felt we were promised to have if we just worked hard enough, and everything that would come with it. So the course is 8 modules. And we talk about body grief, as I said. It can be over 8 weeks, but people can do it whenever they want. But if people want to come in, and I will also do the course alongside them, I normally say 1 week course, 1 week me. So that would be over 4 months.
Yeah.
People can take the amount of time they want. This is not a quick fix. Like, you know, when people go in for diets and they're like, right, in 2 months, you're going to lose 2 stone, just, you know, stop living and stop eating bread. But it's not a quick fix. This is something that you have, and you get to know all of the tools. You get them in your backpack or your toolkit. And when you're having a day that you're like, oh, I'm not doing too well, I need a pick me up, or I need something to be with this, you dip into the course and you pick out what works for you. So you can dip into it whenever you like.
Hey, it sounds fantastic.
Thank you.
I should definitely be promoting that. What do you see? What results do you see, like the changes in people that are coming forward? And is it just actually for women, or is it for all humans?
Do you know what? I see some men in my private practice, and men that struggle with BDD as well. But I find the trend with males that I see with body image concerns and with BDD, it's mainly to do with it's more muscle dysmorphia.
Yes.
And you know, wanting to be bigger. And a lot of what I talk about is relating to the shrinking. And I'm sure a man could pick it up, but I wouldn't want to sell this because I'd be doing the man a disservice. It wouldn't feel personalized to him. And a lot of what's going in there is aimed at the stereotypical and traditional woes or problems that women seem to face.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
That's all right. That's all right.
So, on the other side, then, when women have completed the course, what do you see? What changes?
What do I see? So something that's quite big is I notice women rely on numbing less. So bear through suffering. I just think it's so normalized in the UK. Like women, they'll be drinking, or they need to have some drinks to let off steam at the end of the day, or you know, they're in toxic relationships that just keep they don't think they're worth anything else, so they just give a permission slip to be treated like shit. I see coming. They're more able to show up in the world and not try to get rid of discomfort. They tune into themselves now and go, what am I feeling? What is the message behind this emotion? Rather than, oh, I must be wrong or whatever, and block it out. So I see women that have more food freedom. I really hate this as well. I'm eating clean.
Yes.
It's a superfood. What is it? Does it put on a cape? Like, what's going on? There is no morality. We lose that bullshit. So we unassign morality to foods. They unassign morality to body shape or weight. And they have enhanced relationships, because think about that amount of time that we're spending checking or changing or, you know, fantasizing. And we're actually present with our loved ones, our children, our partners. We're present with ourselves. We can listen to messages, you know, and because we don't have that scarcity complex, I'll just have one, we're not so preoccupied with food.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I was thinking, you said about 5 hours a day. Our mind is taken up. So all of those things that you said that you see on the other side, the word freedom came up in my mind.
I remember when I started thinking about a course, someone said to me, I could get emotional talking about it. Someone said to me, what do you want? I was just like, I just want women to be free.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just want them to be free. Like, I think we have been caged sometimes with all the messages, all of the beliefs that have been imprinted on us. And I just really want women, one at a time, or with the cause, more at a time. I just want women to be free and lead a life that's unrestricted because, my God, do they not deserve that?
Yeah. Hey, and I tell you what comes up for me, we're both getting emotional, but I was thinking of that little girl on the mission and wanting to help people. And that is exactly what you're doing, aren't you, in this present moment? Yeah. So I want to pick your brains because, yeah, if you don't mind, I've got a couple more bits. I know we've not got too much longer.
Okay.
You spoke about eating disorders. So, what we know is, well, we mentioned it. So, we know that having body image problems can lead to then people developing more mental ill health conditions. So, we've spoken about BDD, eating disorders. Um, you said that needs one on one, or it's helpful to have one on one. And I just wanted to say so, if we had somebody listening,
Hmm.
what do you know of what modalities would you recommend for the eating disorders, say for instance?
Hmm. So, um, if we're looking at, I've worked not with eating disorders, but we used to have people with eating disorders come over to the unit actually because a lot of eating disorders are related to perfectionism as well.
Yeah,
Um, so eating disorders and BDD typically are treated with CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Um,
yes,
but there's arguments about that. But that if you look up the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, the guidelines would be CBT. So the recommendations are not coaches, it's not counseling. And also, I'm thinking about BDD here as well. It's making sure your practitioner is a specialist or the unit that you go to, it's a specialist in treating that disorder. One
yeah,
size does not fit all.
yeah,
So also with BDD, it's making sure that the practitioner is trained in exposure response prevention, which is the stuff like your acts of courage, I call them.
yeah.
So if anyone wants,
Fascinating.
absolutely, if anyone ever is struggling with, oh, what do I do? What's the actual recommendation? Look up the NICE guidelines. That's just NICE, and that is all the wealth and research behind it. And it shows you all of the research behind the disorder, and also it's got information for carers, friends, family,
Yeah.
and what modality is best suited. So that's a
Brilliant.
really good resource.
Hey, lovely. And can I check, do you offer, so if somebody was living with BDD, is that something you work with on a one-on-one?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to make sure on when I write up the podcast, everybody will be able to see where they can get in touch with you. What's the best way to get in touch with you, actually?
um, so the best way is probably email. I'm just Tara at thebodyimagespsychotherapist.com. Or if you don't want to write, you can catch me on Instagram and LinkedIn, just body image psychotherapist. I think that's it. Yeah. So
Hey,
grab me that way.
fantastic. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been an absolute pleasure. Lots of love.
Yeah.